Yeah, welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Friday evening. Happy weekend to everybody out there. Tonight, we are preparing to talk about the San Jose Sharks. And for the second video in a row, as I'm preparing to come to you, all you fine people on the internet, a big trade happens for the team I am trying to prepare for. Again, I had to do one of these, crumple my paper up and throw it away and start over here just a couple hours ago as we have a fairly significant trade to talk about between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. Yaroslav Askarov, a young goaltender from Nashville, heading over to San Jose, along with forward Nolan Burke and a 2025 third round draft pick. Heading back to Nashville, a couple of prospects forward David Enstrom and goalie Magnus Corona, and a conditional 2025 first round draft pick. Um, Askarov, a couple weeks back, started becoming quite vocal about wanting out of Nashville. Reports were out earlier that he was not going to report to the AHL team. This we kind of saw percolating as we got into the offseason. Nashville re-signed UC Soros. They brought in backup Scott Wedgwood. And Askarov has had two really dominant years at the AHL level. So you can kind of understand him not really wanting to take another back seat and head back to Milwaukee for another season. I do feel like this was a really productive trade for both teams. Last year, Yaroslav had a 30-13-1 record in Milwaukee with a 2.39 goals against and a 911 save percentage. So, yeah, I don't really know what else he had left to do at the AHL level at the American League. Like we said, once the Saros extension happened, once Wedgwood was signed, we kind of saw some of this stuff coming. Um, I just think that San Jose answers an absolutely huge, huge question for themselves by getting this young starting goaltender that should be, in net for the next 10 to 12 years for them. So these things don't come along all the time. For Nashville, I think they do an okay job here. They do get the conditional first round pick. Now, what that means is that if San Jose finishes in the bottom 10, let's say in the league, and they get a top 10 pick, they can keep that pick. And I think it's Vegas's pick, so they can give up Vegas's pick instead. I think that's how I saw that written out today. I could be wrong, but it is conditional. So if San Jose ends up, again in the top five, they don't necessarily have to give that pick to Nashville. Um, so along with that pick, a couple minor leaguers they get, I think they do get some value here. But I'm really curious to hear from Nashville fans on this one. It was just back in 2020. You spent an 11 overall pick on Yaroslav, and he just has all the makings to be an elite level goaltender. The Preds made their decision. You see Saros, he's no slouch. He's an all world goaltender himself. Going to be really curious to see how this one plays out. Um, Going to be fun. Going to be fun. And listen, Preds fans, you've had a heck of an off season. Does this put a damper on it for you? Is this a little bit of a little bit of black mark after getting all those big veterans that you did earlier on? May not hurt you this year. Again, curious to see how it plays out moving forward. So, yeah, interesting trade for sure. I think there were probably a lot of teams looking at Askarov. Again, goaltenders like this are hard to get, and good on the Sharks for getting it done. Moving on now to the actual preview for the season, talking about new head coach Ryan Warsawski. Of course, was an assistant there under David Quinn last season. Northfield, or North Marshfield, Mass native, I should say, so another local guy. Worked his way up through the East Coast League in South Carolina. Was in the AHL level as well in Charlotte and Chicago, and it was with the Wolves that he won the Calder Cup as a head coach in 21-22. So successful guy. This will be his first NHL head coaching experience. Um, knows the team. Again, he was there last year, and I think overall decent fit. Cheering for him. Hopefully, he can have a good first experience as a head coach. Has all sorts of young talent to work with, and has a chance to kind of reset and rebuild culture there. They're going to be really interesting to watch. I do have a couple thoughts on David Quinn, and if you have been watching my channel here for a while, you know that I've kind of raved and ranted about how the NHL treats head coaches. And when David Quinn was hired there a couple of years ago, he was actually a finalist here in Boston before Monty got the job. There's no question what the team was going through. They were lousy. They were building. They had really nothing in the tank. Um, Really curious to see how Quinn. Yeah, they only won 19 games. We'll talk about that here in a second. But just I don't know what the expectation was from management for what David Quinn was supposed to do with this team. I have to imagine there must have been some other things behind the scenes, whether it be just culture or something. But you get the first overall pick. That's kind of what you wanted if you were San Jose. I just think that Quinn gets a really bad rap, losing his job when really the team on the ice had maybe no business of even being in the AHL, let alone the NHL. This was a bad, bad, bad team. So I just think again, these NHL management groups have such a quick trigger finger and have no patience. And you know, for one, for me, I'm cheering for David Quinn to get another head coaching job, and I'm sure that will piss Ranger fans right off because I don't think there was any love lost there when he lost his job there too. Um, but listen, anyway, Warsawski gets his first opportunity. Um, Another Massachusetts kid making it up and making it up, to the top of the league, and I'm certainly cheering for him to be successful. Salary cap numbers. Now, this is, I believe, before the Askarov trade goes in, but according to Puckpedia, they have $10.42 million under the cap. The Askarov hit is about a $925,000 hit, so that number may come down. So they do have a little bit of wiggle room, some opportunity to move some players around and maybe add to the group if they see fit. We all know the 2024 draft was wildly successful for this team this year. They do end up winning the lottery, and they get Macklin Celebrini Boston University's Macklin Celebrini goes over at number one, and they draft defenseman Sam Dickinson, another highly touted draft pick at number 11. So they do just an excellent job there. Celebrini, of course, signing with San Jose, not going back to BU, and going to be a lot of fun to watch him. A little bit like Connor Bedard last year. I think there'll be a lot of buzz around Celebrini, and now with the team they kind of have built around him, how is he going to develop? How is he going to play and look on the ice? He's another one of those kids where going back to BU for another year, I don't really know what else he gets out of that season. I know that Terriers fans were probably a little miffed that they lose their guy, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Talking just a little bit about last year, and we're not going to belabor these points because this was a god awful season um, for the Sharks. They finished 19, 54, and 9. That's 47 points. Of course, 8th in the Pacific, and guess what? They missed the playoffs. I'm just gonna grab a note right over here that I have. Sorry about that. But when you talk about, you know, 19 wins, that's tough. That's a lot of losing. And the season started, if you all remember, first 11 games are 0-10-1. That's bad. That's bad. They got outscored 55-12. And the last two losses in that stretch, I think they gave up 10 goals per game. That's awful. I mean, all the conversation was going around like, is this gonna be the, like, most historically, like, worst losing team in the history of the NHL? I don't believe they hit that number, but it was trending that direction very, very early. There was another stretch, starting December 15th that ran all the way to January 9th, but they went 0-12, and in that stretch, they got outscored 54-17. So, you don't have a lot of fun. Sure, you're in the NHL and you're getting paid well, but there's not a lot of fun being had when you're doing that kind of losing. Team stats again, we're not going to beat the team up too much here, but their goals for, goals against was not a pretty picture. They were 31st in the league at a 2.20 goals for and a 3.98 goals against. Good for 32nd in the league. That takes them to a minus 146 goals. So meaning they gave up 146 more goals than they scored. That's a long season. That's just a lot of long, long, horrible nights. I think if you're a Sharks fan or you're a Sharks player. surprisingly enough, their power play wasn't awful. They were 21st in the league at 20.2%. I think they were actually ahead of Winnipeg, playoff team. Their PK was at 28, at 75.4. And on the faceoff circle, they were 22nd in the league at 49%, just a shade below Boston. So for as bad as they were, a couple little numbers in there that ring okay for them. We're going to talk about the key additions later because they did add a number of veterans to this team, but kind of talking about the returning kind of core skaters coming back. Fabian Zetterlund, forward, played 82 games last season, 24 goals, 20 assists for 44 points. Uh, Center Mikel Granlund played 69 games last season, 12 goals, 48 assists, 60 points for him. Forward William Eklund in 80 games had 16 goals, 29 assists, and 40 points. And then a little bit forgotten forward Logan Couture comes back this year. Only played 6 games, dealt with injuries most of the season, but in that 6 games, just the one assist on the year. But he does have 323 career goals, so hopefully he's back and healthy. He could be a really good veteran, presence for some of these young guys on the team. Goaltending, I almost don't want to talk about it because it was just that bad. And of course, with Askarov coming over, he's clearly getting the net this year. But last season, it did have Mackenzie Blackwood had a 10, 25, and 4 record, 3.48 goals against average, and a 899 save percentage. Vitek Vanacek was 17, 9 and 3, 3.18. So not much better there, and an 890 save percentage. So bad defensive units in front of you, bad goaltending. It just equals to nothing but bad, which is exactly why San Jose goes out and spends a first round pick to go get this young goaltender to really answer this question because this is no matter what you do up front, end of the day, you're going to need a goaltender. Yeah, to go very far in the playoffs. And they got their guy. Uh, Key additions, July 1st was actually fairly busy for the team, and I was kind of happy to see it for these guys, adding a number of different players, and they've stayed kind of active and busy as the offseason has gone on. They've given us a few things to talk about. Carl Gunstrom, forward, added. Defenseman Jake Wallman coming over from Detroit. Ty Delandria, forward, comes over from Dallas. Barclay Goodrow, this one made some news coming out of the New York Rangers organization. Um, yeah, now playing for San Jose. There's a lot of stories about how he didn't really want to go there. I think he blocked a trade there earlier on or something like that, but he's there. They also signed Tyler Toffoli, one of the better gets of the offseason. This guy was a 55 points a year ago between the Devils and the Jets. Um, be curious to see what he does there in San Jose. He could be another guy that's on the move again. He seems to get traded a lot. He might be a good trade trip as we get into that time of the year. They do bring over Alexander Wenberg as well. And then just recently, I'm bringing over defenseman Cody Cece in that trade with Edmonton. Out the door, Kyle Burrows and Ty Emberson both leave, both defensemen. I might be missing a couple guys, but those are the kind of the ones that I had on my list. So not a lot of guys going out the door, but they do bring in a fair amount of good veteran players, solid veteran players. And when I was looking earlier on, I think I did an episode on this too. Looking at the most improved teams in the league, I did have San Jose on my list. When you draft a player of Celebrini's caliber and his stature, you can't just throw him out to the wolves early in his career. You want to surround him with some solid veterans and do at least some winning, right? Knowing you're not going to win a ton, but you want to do a little bit of winning anyway. So I like a lot of what they did in free agency. Very similar to what Chicago's done with Bedard, what they kind of added to again this year. So you create that good layer of veteran presence, veteran players around your young star. It can take some of the pressure off him and allows him to develop and grow while still being able to play at the NHL level. There's a lot of value there, in my opinion. And once you get to the trading, deadline, you have some opportunities maybe to make some trades and get some assets back if you really want to. You'll have plenty of teams calling you for a guy like Toffoli, maybe a guy like a Cece or a Wenberg, something like that. Maybe a Barclay Goodrow. So, uh, all value all around. I think the value of what you're doing to kind of insulate these young players and potentially value in February when the trade deadline comes. Now with the addition of Askarov, you have a legit youth movement when you talk about Celebrini, Will Smith, Sam Dickinson. This is something to be excited about if you're a San Jose fan. And I do think this is going to start getting people, back into the arena more consistently, creating just more buzz, more energy. That's just awesome for this organization. This season, though, really, in my opinion, has everything to do with two different things. Number one, Warsawski and his staff setting a culture, surrounded around work ethic, playing hard, playing the game the right way that doesn't accept losing so casually. And I'm not suggesting that David Quinn was setting that kind of culture, but it just seemed like this team lost and lost well. I mean, they lost really easily, and at times this year just didn't have a lot of pushback. I mean, again, the roster is what it is, but that can sometimes be culture stuff too. Not really sure. Not being in the room, I'm not sure. I'm just looking at it from the outside in. But regardless, Warsawski's going to have that chance to, build a new culture. We talked in the last episode about Montreal, how Martin St. Louis has gotten the Canadians to, play hard and play with some grit. Now they have to learn how to win. Well, San Jose is probably a step behind them. But they got to learn how to play hard and play consistent, and then the winning, should follow. So that's number one. Number two, no surprise here, just the growth and the development of these young players, with Celebrini, Smith, Askarov, Dickinson. If the coaching staff can reset a good culture and these young guns can get a good quality year of development under their belt, I'd call that a success. I know every team wants to win. Every team wants to have some hope in August and September. And I'm sure with this trade tonight, there'll be fans out there saying, "Hey, we've got a shot this year. Why not? Hey, we got Toffoli in town. We got Celebrini here now. Why not us this year?" And listen, you may have a shot of hanging around the wild card conversation for a bit, but I can't see the playoffs quite yet for this team. Going from 19 wins to a playoff spot in 1 year is just too big of a jump for me to get on board with. But for the first time in a long, long, long time, San Jose has something to be excited about and a lot to build around. So this year should be a lot of fun for the fans. Keep those winning expectations low. Watch for that natural growth of these young sharks. I think they're in for a really good time here over the next 3, 4, 5 seasons. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Um, so I haven't decided which team I'm covering next, but whatever team that is, they better make a big trade for me to talk about. I got a 2 episode streak going here. I want to keep that. I want to keep that going. Um, some other news today, AHL news from the American League. The Board of Governors made a decision that it's now going to be mandatory for all players to wear neck guards. Something I talked about with Dr. Kristen Moody there a few episodes ago, just about health and safety. And we all know the tragedy that happened in England last year. You saw it last year. A lot of NHL players started wearing them. A lot of younger players were wearing them. So now this will be mandatory. So if you do go to any American League games this year in your cities, you're going to see all the players wearing those. And I do think you'll start to see more and more NHL players, using the new equipment, getting comfortable with it. And big picture, I think it is a good thing long term. So anyway, guys, hope everybody has a wonderful weekend out there. Thank you so much for the support. If you do like what you're hearing, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate it. And until next time, be kind, show love, and God bless.